During the freezing January of 1547, the walls of the royal palace in England concealed a truly nightmarish scene. The most powerful monarch in the kingdom lay motionless, surrounded by a putrid stench and abandoned by much of his court. His body, deformed by disease, oozed with sores that had already become a feast for insects. Hardly anyone dared to approach him. That bedridden, nearly unrecognizable man was Henry VIII, once the living icon of power, beauty, and Renaissance brilliance. How did it come to this end? How did a young prince, admired across Europe, end up isolated, disfigured, and feared even by his own physicians? To understand this tragic downfall, we must return to the beginning. Henry Tudor was born in 1491, with no real aspirations to the throne. As the second son of Henry VII, his initial path seemed destined for the church. It was his older brother, Arthur, who was meant to rule. However, after Arthur's sudden death, everything changed. At barely 10 years old, the young Henry became heir to the throne. From that moment on, the fear of dying without a male heir would shape nearly every decision he made. In 1509, at just 17 years old, Henry was crowned king. The young monarch radiated vitality, tall, charismatic, multilingual, and a lover of music, hunting, and intellectual debate. He dazzled everyone with his presence and talent. He married the Spanish Princess Catherine of Aragon, aiming to seal a powerful alliance with the most influential empire of the time. But the marriage that promised stability soon brought growing tension. Catherine suffered multiple miscarriages, and of all her pregnancies, only one child survived, a daughter named Mary. For a king obsessed with securing a male heir, this was seen as a direct threat to the stability of the realm. His anxiety, coupled with growing distrust toward those around him, gradually eroded his character. And then, Anne Boleyn appeared. Unlike other women at court, and did not want to be the king's mistress, her ambition was the crown itself. For a year, she resisted Henry's advances, inflaming his desire to a level of near desperation. This forbidden love sparked a crisis unlike any the kingdom had seen. Determined to marry Anne, Henry broke with the Pope, founded the Church of England, and seized control of religion across the country. The political transformation was profound, but the personal one was just as dramatic. Those who dared to defy Henry's new authority, like Thomas More, paid with their lives. Henry cast Catherine aside, married Anne, and anxiously awaited a son to secure the dynasty. But Anne gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth. Subsequent miscarriages sealed her fate. In 1536, Anne was accused of adultery and incest. She was executed. Only days later, the king married Jane Seymour. Jane gave Henry what he had longed for, a male heir, Edward. But she died shortly after childbirth. Devastated, Henry never loved the same way again. His body, already plagued by a festering leg wound, began to change dramatically. He gained weight rapidly, suffered from intense pain, and his temperament became increasingly volatile. More marriages followed. Anne of Cleves, whose appearance disappointed him. Catherine Howard, young and full of life, was executed for infidelity. And finally, Catherine Parr, who became more of a nurse than a wife in his final years. Henry became almost immobile. He required mechanical devices to move, and his rooms were filled with strong aromas to mask the stench of his decaying flesh. He was a king imprisoned by his own body. His extreme diet and lack of physical activity only worsened his health. Even in his final years, he continued ordering executions, some even within his own family. As death became inevitable, he worked on his will to ensure his son Edward would inherit the throne. But his legacy would not be the one he had imagined. Henry died at the age of 55, on January 28, 1547. The embalming process failed to contain the advanced decay of his body. His coffin began to leak bodily fluids onto the floor of the chapel. A grotesque and symbolic moment that reflected both the physical and moral corruption of his final years. Ironically, it was his daughter Elizabeth, the child of Anne Boleyn, the woman he had condemned, who would go on to usher in England's golden age. She defeated the Spanish Armada, expanded naval power, and witnessed the rise of the arts, including the works of Shakespeare. The daughter of the woman Henry sent to the scaffold would lift England to heights even he never achieved. Thus ended the life of Henry VIII. A king whose story was a mixture of grandeur, unchecked ambition, and deep personal tragedy. Admired in his youth, hated in his old age. His body became the living symbol of his tyranny. His life stands as a historical warning about the dangers of absolute power and the fragile humanity that lies beneath the crown.